There's a whole lot of things as Nigerians we ordinarily must come to look at if we plan to make progress and if we plan to make headway anytime soon. We must first of all come to the realization and the fact that things are pretty much in a very bad stage at the moment. Economic instability is our number one challenge in that particular in Nigeria. We are experiencing it on a whole lot of level. It has come to its worst, and I say this not as an unpatriotic citizen. I say this with all manner of reservation, with all manner of respect for what has come down to us as Nigeria, a land of different people, a land that should be considered beyond a mere geographical positioning, as many persons have come to hold such a place as Nigeria to be. And so, when you look at the economic situation in the country at the moment, and you look at the purchasing power of your friends and your family members and your enemies, if you have any, you get to see that things are pretty much in a very, very bad situation. And there's nothing that strengthens the ill of politicians as our continuous silence as it concerns we trying not to demarket ourselves in the international world, as though the international community don't ordinarily understand what it currently means to be a Nigerian, the reality we get to face as a people. They know, but they are not going to come to save you. They are facing their own issues. They have their own problems, and if they have you at heart, I want to understand it will be from a utilitarian perspective. It's high time we come to tell ourselves that economic instability is a thing we must seriously come to give attention to, and we must come to look for ways and look for solutions where we must go, solutions and how we ordinarily are to really cater for the problems we have as a people. Because if we continue to do this and our politicians continue to ask us to go and ask God why things are the way they are, and our pastors continue to tell us that it is because of our sins, that is why situations are the way they are, it is because of our ill and our wrongdoings, that's why the world is the way it is, that is why our reality is the way our reality is, one begins to ask himself, what then is the problem? What then is stopping God from changing the hands of time? Because there are a whole lot of other countries with worse history than our history, organized warfares and beheading of people and killing of people in their numbers across the world, and they are still technically surviving. Isn't it the case that these people have lied to us for too long? These people have told us that ordinarily we should be looking for our answers in a very wrong place. And I believe we've been looking for our answers in the wrongest of place. We have not, as a people, collectively been so responsible when it comes to solving our problems, when it comes to looking at our situation squarely. Because tell me which country finds itself in the current situation it finds itself and then just sits down, except such a country doesn't have the manpower and the policies right in place to get to see to it that things ordinarily get advanced to a logical conclusion and for the betterment of everybody. Beyond the theatrics of international politics and geopolitics and the sanctimonious attitude and sanctions being leveled against a continent such as Africa as we have come to have it. It's a difficult thing for me to wrap my head around as to how irresponsible we have been for the longest period of time, how we have allowed a thing as inflation ordinarily taken over the affairs of our situation, because our purchasing power is currently weak. Our purchasing power continues to dwindle day in, day out on a daily, because for a point in our life, we were sold a lie. We were told that the things we had as a people were inferior. We were told to devalue our currency. At a point, Nigeria borrowed money to IMF. At a point in history, Nigeria was thinking of making deals with countries as it concerns to lending them money and then getting to see how this money is used for the propagation of the growth of such economy and all that. And fast forward today, 2024, you see where we are as a people. You see how far we have come. You see how far and how probably well, if that sarcasm is not lost on me, we as a people have come. And we begin to ask ourselves, what went wrong? We start from the very beginning, the thing as agriculture. What has happened over the years? We have seen a shift in the ways we ordinarily farm. We have seen a shift in the ways of our ancestors, so to say. We have seen a shift in the ways we ordinarily do things and in the way and manner we ordinarily led our lives down here. Many years ago, it was a thing that the idea of polygamy was tied to the economic importance of a family. As such, a man wants to give birth to lots of children and have many wives because one wife ordinarily cannot do all the birthing and the years it's going to take before such a woman accomplish such Herculean task of putting to bed to the desired number of children a man ordinarily needs to be able to cater for his farmland would not be possible. As such, polygamy became a thing that a whole lot of persons ordinarily got to accept without altercation, without hindrance, without questioning such assumptions. I want to believe a whole lot of persons question it, but it is still a thing I as a person cringe at when it comes to the fact that it only tilts to the man's side. And in most culture, it tilts also to the woman's side. But come on, if we want to do things, we should do things the way ordinarily we should do. But that is me saying I don't really have an answer to give as to that. But my preference has always been a man to a woman. Nothing beyond that. Beyond the mess up our biological system can do to us at times. A man to a woman. But that aside, many years ago, a whole lot of persons saw to it that you have a large family so that you ordinarily would be able to compete with the people in town, with the people in life. People were very, very responsible. People were very productive and hardworking. Even those who were lazy ordinarily, I want to believe, had a way or two of coming around a craft, a thing they had that ordinarily will put food on their table, be it as small as it may be. They had a thing or two to do that kept them going, that kept them afloat, that kept them functioning over and over and over the years they survived and they had their existence come to a close. But what have we seen in the forthcoming years? In the last couple of decades, we've seen a shift and no complete fault of us. Globalization has taken place. People have come to embrace education. People have come to embrace the new ways of ordinarily getting to study. And that, when I mean education, I mean formal education, because people have always been educated, and as such, people across the world have been educated on different things other than the formal, systematic way of putting things down to that's pen to paper and forming these syllogisms that ordinarily guide the way we ordinarily get to think and we get to reason and go about our lives in the 21st century. What changed is the idea of work and how work ordinarily has come to be interpreted. As such, we have bankers who keep money for people and then get to run transactions. As such, we have advertising agents in recent times. As such, we have book publishers, and we have book vendors, and we have bookstores, and we have commuters, and we have drivers, and we have pilots, and we have aeronautic engineers, and we have people from diverse fields of life, mechanical engineers, and we've come to have a whole lot of things at our disposal, at our forefront. But agriculture still remains the bedrock for a whole lot of adventure, for a whole lot of reasons. Those sailors who went on expeditions many years ago, who went on voyages trying to discover things and look for new ways, went in search of things that would ordinarily benefit them one way or the other. The people of France and the United Kingdom in the 16th, 17th up until the 18th, 19th century found their way to India for things such as cotton, for demands for cotton as it became a necessary tool for them to use to get to churn out the clothes they were using in that particular period. And they even had to fight a very serious battle, which saw to it that the United Kingdom came to have a great share of what has now become India. They controlled a great chunk of the land and the people and exploited them for their selfish interests, devoid of humanity, devoid of anything you want to talk about being human. But back to the issue. It all falls down to agriculture. Everybody eats every day. Everybody drinks water. Everybody yearns to satisfy the craving of hunger. Though a whole lot of persons in our world today still find it difficult to feed a thing, I still blame the policies and the ways we've come to look at things in our modern time and in our life and in our ways of reasoning and in our ways of doing things and in the ways we ordinarily have come down to. In the ways we've come down to live our lives now, people sometimes in and about profit and profit alone. And so we are also betting kids and more people are being born every day and people live longer every day. There are less numbers of wars as opposed to the wars we used to have behind. And there's more food from a particular perspective as opposed to the ways we've had food in the past. As such, we see the ways we've come to churn out foods and produce foods and different forms of nutrition and different forms of quenching our cravings as a race down here. As such, we've exploited the earth, we've been exploiting a whole lot of things. But one thing that lies at the crux of all our issues down here is the fact that we are no longer dying as we used to die. As such, we are now more populated than ever before. We've come to understand our science, we've come to understand the mechanics that ordinarily keeps us here moving alive and prolonging our lives. Save for the fact that in Nigeria, our mortality rate is still very low, between the ages of 40 to 50 and even sometimes as low as 5 years old for our kids. But then we are still reproducing. We are not as far off in terms of understanding the ways and manners in which we ordinarily should do things than we were in, let's say, 80, 70 years ago, even 50 years down history's lane. But then we have not come to cater for the vast majority of what we are producing at the moment. We've not come to cater for the vast majority of things we are now doing as a people, because as a people, in time and in space and at the time we find ourselves, we have a population we've not been able to cater for. So we have not been able to convince ourselves enough as to the need of being productive enough to cater for what we have come to produce, which is our population. As such, there have been a training as it concerns we coming to understand life from a very different perspective, the idea of purchasing things outside. As such, we have been importing things at an alarming state, at a rate in which we sometimes fail to realize that the things we claim to be quality in other countries, the things we claim to have quality and have all these futures we so much desire, can ordinarily come from our quotas. Or if they can't come from our quotas directly, we call it a shot, we call it a day, as it concerns the ways we have come to accept life, the ways we have come to accept our existence down here, the ways we've come to eat, the way we've come to sleep. We make do with what we have, because in and about these things are the foundations of the current level of inflation we've had as a people. We don't have a serious purchasing power. Despite the fact that we produce oil and a couple of things, our export continues to dwindle because we've had people constantly migrate to urban areas, which is a good thing to do. If you listen to the song Fast Car by Tracy Chapman, you get to see the idea of, getting to leave a place and then sort out for better life, pack everything in a small bag and then enter your car and then drive off very fast. It is a plausible thing to do, but a country has to be fed. Our people have to be self-sustaining, else they should be ready to cater for the good of their people and make the purchases from outside by making provisions necessary for life to continue wheresoever they are. And so, as we continue to want to do white collar jobs, as we continue to want to look at white collar jobs as things only where we wear suits and wear ties without boots, without raincoats, without helmet, without protective gears, without hand gloves, and just sit in the farm and sit in the office, we would continue to be where we are until we begin to reimagine the way things ordinarily should be and the way our labor force ordinarily should be. We will continue to stay down where we are. We will continue to be where we are. We will continue to go the way we go until we begin to look at things from a different perspective. But then if we end here, it looks as though things ordinarily would have been better, right? But that's not the truth. Insecurity has been a thing raging the country, Nigeria, for a very long time and for very obvious reasons. One of the reasons being that people are not secure enough. There can only be insecurity when people are not secure. There can only be insecurity when people are not safe. There can only be insecurity when people are ashamed of themselves, are kind of, will I say, not so sure of what they should do and not so sure of how they should lead their life and live their life and lead their life down here. As such, because of the rising need and the craving in man for good and for bad sometimes to satisfy our wants as opposed to our needs, we have come to have a thing such as insecurity. A thing also born from the very fact that we have not really seen ourselves as brothers and sisters. So that the feudal war going on and the attempt to Islamize the country is not a thing to be taken lightly. Because we see right from the days of Afonja in Ilori, we now see a reality in such a state as we now have it to be. A state once not dominated by the Islamic religion. Now a thing and a force to be reckoned with down that particular path. We are seeing with our very eyes the whole demand for the lands of the people of Makurdi, the thief people, the Benue State, the people of Benue State, and little or nothing is done by the government. And it has been raging throughout the times of Governor Tom up until the time of Father Governor Alia. And we look the other way. We do as though it doesn't really concern us. We do as though we behave as if it's not our problem. As such, our brothers and sisters continue to die. Because of insecurity, our brothers and sisters continue to perish because of insecurity. And what is the root cause of this insecurity? It stems first from the idea that a particular group of people believe that Western education is evil. Started from Boko Haram, banditry. And now it has been garnished, it has been furnished, and a new name has been given to it. Illegal mining. Though it's still called banditry, up north. So that lands are being displaced and people are being told to leave. So that lands are being exploited and mines are being created and illegal mining continues to go on. And artisanal miners are currently being employed on different scales and on different levels to get to do the whole lot of things they get to do. To see to it that ordinarily they get to feed their family, and most of the times the guys at the upper echelon of things as to how these mines get to operate continue to exploit such a place, because if there is peace, it should ordinarily belong to everybody. But since there is chaos, it belongs to a few, and the exploitation continues. Because don't just think that the North is currently facing the problems it's facing because a group of people just ordinarily want to agitate. Our people say there's no smoke without fire. There's a whole lot at stake here. There's a whole lot we must look at. There's a whole lot we must come to accept as a people, else we labor in vain, else we crumble together. As such, the man from the north, his life is currently being threatened. His source of livelihood, his way of doing things, his way of behaving, his way of living, his way of currently being a human being is a thing that threatens, is a thing a whole lot of persons still don't really come to realize how difficult it is. I can only but imagine what it means like living in a place like Bronu in the periods and in the times right after the bombings that happened there. I still try to understand what life was for the people of Nyanya and how things ordinarily was for them. It was pretty much very, very alarming. It was very, very crazy, and you see them continue to do the things they get to do, the way they get to live their life. They continue to lead their life in ways we ordinarily might not ordinarily come to understand and might not even want to come to terms with in the 21st century as to how things ordinarily are. And so with a thing like insecurity causing the source of livelihood from the other end, whereby these people known for agricultural production and all that and what they used to do, with such having to quit their jobs and quit their farm work and quit their source of occupation and source of livelihood, unemployment continues to rage and continues to be a thing that flow in the country. And unemployment is as old as the coming of a country that's the naming of a country such as Nigeria. People are currently being unemployed on different levels because the new ways of thinking and so-called the ways of the white man have not really been a thing that has seen to it that we face our problems and face our problems squarely. We also have not really been sincere with ourselves. We have programs in universities, and these programs fail to meet the benchmark of what ordinarily should solve our problems. So we go to school and we send our kids necessarily to go get degrees, and most times as even opposed to technical diplomas and programs from colleges of education, and academic level is so low and so shabby and so scattered and so empty most times that we get to produce graduates that don't ordinarily get to understand what they should do. We produce graduates that ordinarily don't meet the labor market, that don't meet the benchmark of what life ordinarily should be around our current existence with the way we get to do things. Because these people get to come out of schools after spending the prime of their youth, after suffering from abuses from lecturers, after suffering from the debt in infrastructures and ways of living and ways of doing things. And nobody complains because we can only buy what we are being sold. Our politicians send their kids to the best of schools, be there in Nigeria or be there outside. But then they leave your brother, they leave my sister, they leave our uncles and aunties to wallow in whatsoever we now have as places of higher learning. So that in the 21st century, Nigeria doesn't have a national library. It doesn't have a structure so called that for the past 20 years, the building close to the national mosque is still a thing of debate as to how to get to finance and finish such a structure. So that the National Archive in Ibadan is being housed by the University of Ibadan and not as though an individual or a private entity. So that a place like the library belonging to the former president is even a more viable place for research than a whole lot of government organizations and government institutions that ordinarily should see to it that things get to function well. Libraries across Nigeria have remained death traps for students, and the books there most of the times are books brought by the white men, brought by administrations right after independence, which were a function of most of the times military government. And so we see our politicians going on escapades and riding on jeeps and riding on exotic cars while the vast majority of the people get to wallow in pain and get to wallow in suffering. As such, we're not tackling our real problems. And so we saw the First Lady of the country donated to the tune of how many billion naira. Where did she get the money from? What is her job? What is her source of funding? Where does the First Lady generate her own money? These funds were they given by friends, family, relatives, or they were from the purse of the country. It's a thing sometimes I don't even want to think about because it's a thing that leaves me sad, angry, and ashamed. But our politicians know how to deal with us, and so they continue to do what they do. They continue to navigate us on autopilot. They continue to leave us the way they live because they know we are not tired yet. We are not ready for the change they believe we ordinarily deserve. Sometimes I don't even want to believe they believe we deserve better. Because the next crop of politicians are currently in schools, are currently in motor parks, are currently serving under politicians, and they are learning and they are seeing how things go. They are not looking at the possibility of repairing the fan so that it rotates and touches everybody. They are looking at everybody standing in queue until it gets to your turn. So that I, as a human being, I don't understand what it means to have federal character in a place like Nigeria. What happens to meritocracy? These are conversations sometimes we take too serious. Let us talk about the small things. Let us talk about the things that the normal cliches we get to hear every day in our space, in our life. Corruption. What is corruption? When we're growing up, we're told corruption is the canker worm that has eaten deep into the fabric of our very society. But where is the lie? Show me one family in Nigeria, one family that has not benefited or that has not suffered from corruption. One family, I don't need too many. I just need one family that has not either suffered or benefited from corruption. There's none. There's no family that hasn't benefited from corruption. So that we continually see hospitals become death traps for patients, so that we continually see our judiciary system continue to be places where people can't find justice, so that we continually see our correctional centers being in shambles, a place so despicable, from Kuje to Abakaliki to Enugu to Kirikiri in Lagos to Diamond Hill in Calabar. These places are death traps. These places are places beasts of burdens shouldn't even be kept. Our correctional centers need salvation. Our correctional centers are devoid of whatsoever it takes to be human. And sometimes I want to make the analogy that the concentration camps are well structured than our prisons. They don't want us to call them prisons again in Nigeria, but they are worse than prisons. Our so-called correctional centers back home stings the devil. I've been to the concentration camps in Europe a couple of times, and I can tell you there was structure in place. You could see if you go to the concentration camp in Auschwitz, you get to see railway tracks being directed to such a place. You get to see buildings being provided. You get to see barricades, and you get to see barbed wires, and you get to see lighting, and you get to see the gas chambers, and you get to see a whole lot of things being made possible for the extinction of a people. A very heinous, evil, devilish idea. Whatever that came from, it shows how devilish the human mind sometimes can be. But what was the analogy that took me to the concentration camps? It was the very fact that our prisons are not well funded, as almost every other sector in Nigeria is. So that you continually see that students don't have schools to go to. There are no schools. When you say these things, people ask you, why are you saying all of these things? Why? But come on, there are no schools, there are no roads, we don't have infrastructures, we don't have the basic things we ordinarily need to function as a people. We live below the benchmark of what it means to be a human being in the 21st century. We live below the benchmark of modern day existence. We don't have the basic amenities we ordinarily should have as a people. We don't have hospitals, we don't have schools, we don't have marketplaces, we don't have good structures, we don't have good roads, we don't have infrastructures, we don't have trains walking. People are building houses on railway. The national grid is still below the benchmark of ordinarily what it means to give light to Nigeria 24/7. In the last couple of years, the only time I saw power went out of my room was when the pressure cooker in the kitchen malfunctioned. And it was just to get to cushion things, and power was immediately restored. They just had to cushion things, and so that the building doesn't go out in flames. We call ourselves the giants of Africa. We call ourselves a people strong, big. We call ourselves the lion of... Do we call ourselves the lion? I don't even think so. We call ourselves all sorts of names. But then, our reality doesn't match our swagger. Our current life doesn't match the things we ordinarily get to tell ourselves that we are. The ginger we carry, the swagger we carry, they don't match. Education has not even been a thing we're even wanting to look at. If I am the president, just like the poet and literary critic Ezenwa would say in that his poem, I won't be president. If I am the president of the country, who declares state of emergency on education? A thing as important as education, a thing that can produce engineers, a thing that can produce doctors, nurses, bankers, auditors, businessmen and women on large scale with serious efficiency from materials and research done many years. A place like that is left to wallow in shame and shamble. An institution such as that is left to decay, to rot by your brothers and sisters, by my brothers and sisters, my uncles and my aunties, your uncles and your aunties, your fathers and your mothers. These people who govern us, these people who are in offices, they are brothers and sisters. They aren't strangers. If we are devoid of thinking power, if we are devoid of thinking tanks, we deploy more. A thing education ordinarily would have done, a thing we ordinarily are not even looking at. The few who finally made it to universities don't even know what they are doing there because lecturers continue to exploit them day in, day out, day in, day. It goes back to the same thing we've been talking about. Insecurity. The lecturers are not secure. Most of the lecturers ordinarily would not want to go down this way if they are paid normally. If their services are well rewarded, if they ordinarily have a society and a well-balanced economy that ordinarily with the little amount of money they make from their research and writing and their salaries, they can ordinarily live well as a people. But no, it starts from where we started from. Economic instability, down to inflation, down to insecurity, down to a lack of the fact that we ordinarily should be looking so much towards the direction of agriculture than that you want to think about, that you want to hold. And so we continue to see ourselves go down and go down and go down. These lecturers who were meant to teach, who were meant to research, who were meant ordinarily not to have side jobs and side hustles, who were meant to dedicate themselves to the teaching career and to the profession they have called themselves upon, to see to it that those who come in the near future become better people. We see these men and women running around and roaming around and looking for money as though such is the only way to go, as though such is the way they ordinarily should go. And so we see ourselves falling down day by day by day by day, and we crumble. Parents send their kids and children to universities, to schools, without even knowing what these places get to do to their children. One begins to ask, how well would doctors have fared if they were given labs to really practice? If we didn't just look at things up in textbooks and leave them there, and then we allow them there to rot and to die without ordinarily wanting to look at how bad our situation have become. How would nurses have fared if they had structures in place like they have in the West, where most of the politicians' kids get to run to get a better life, and where those who are sane enough to send their children abroad can do, leaving the bandwagon behind? We do ourselves a great disfavor when, for instance, we allow ourselves to have professors who are very, very unstable, professors who can do anything for money. We have not even gotten to the levels of inhumane practices done by most of them. We've not even gotten to the level of sadistic behaviors they get to put up or they get to put forward when they try to express their egos, and they try to express their level of pride and their level of shamelessness. We've not even gotten to that particular level. We are still just talking about the economic importance they get and derive from their students. Our educational system continues to dwindle. It continues to stay where it is, and it speaks the devil. It speaks everything wrong. It speaks to the fact that we currently are not even ready and willing to do the things we ordinarily should do, as opposed to the things we ordinarily shouldn't be doing. And so we continue to see ourselves fall day by day by day. Slowly, we crumble, we go down. The things our educational systems were ordinarily supposed to forge, the people, the level of proficiency they were ordinarily supposed to grant these young minds and our students, they don't. They allow them wallow in shame. They allow them wallow in despondency. They take away their shame most of the time and leave them shameless, so that class reps go around collecting bribes and funds from majority of the lecturers, so that universities get to exploit students when it comes to the idea of getting transcripts. A thing that many students can tell you categorically has made them lose admission in universities they ordinarily should have gotten to. I know a whole lot of persons who lost out because of things like this. I don't want to think about this because it makes me weak. It makes me shrink. A thing as important as education shouldn't be handled the way it is handled. But what do you expect? When politicians and our leaders just want to squander everything they get to find in the national coffers, in their useless merchandise, in their poor thinking ability, in their poor ways of doing things, in their poor ways of rationality, in their debauchery, in their myopic ways of doing things, making it impossible for the few among them who ordinarily want to see to the good of the country to even function. As such, the Ministry of Education ordinarily bestows no education. Commissions that ordinarily were supposed to look into this just go around and publish white papers. As DK will say, they continue to preside over affairs that never improve. They continue to preside over things that don't get to change. Students can't talk to lecturers, lecturers can't talk to students, students can't communicate with lecturers. They are being exploited day in, day out, year in, year out. Continue to churn out people that ordinarily cannot be employable. People ordinarily who still have to come out and learn skills. People who can finish from a university and get to say university in a scam. Because it doesn't meet the daily reality that is their life. It doesn't touch their existence in real life. It's just there in the classroom. And so I begin to ask myself, at what point are we going to begin to have people who ordinarily can compete and tell themselves, I as a person can also do better? When are we going to begin to have scientists, so to say? When are we going to begin to have scientists in the real sense of the word? Not in name, not in theory, not in paper. Scientists with labs, scientists with research centers and places to function. When are we going to begin to have creative spaces? Not just in Lagos, not just in Ibadan, but across the country. When are we going to begin to have things like libraries? We have not even gotten to that level yet. 60, 70 years down the line, we don't have libraries we don't have libraries in every community in Nigeria. Many years after the advent of the printing press, we have not seen to it that we need things like this. We have not seen to it that things like this can really change the mind of a human being. Things like this can actually change the ways we get to function. Listen to how this Nobel Prize winner got into the sciences. You see how she was fascinated first and foremost by the very fact that somebody came to talk about that particular stuff in her environment, and from there she picked interest, and then she had this idea and she conceived of this idea and she forged ahead and she moved ahead, and then it has come down to be her lot. It has come down to be her part. How many kids are going to farms as child laborers that ordinarily should be in school? How many are Marjories scattered across the north and scattered across different states in the name of a religious idea of begging and setting ourselves up for the great carnage in the future that is going to be the insecurity with the likes of people like that? We are ripping these children of their dignity. We are shredding their life down and down. We are depriving them of what it takes to be human. We aren't giving them a chance to be human. We are not putting ourselves in their shoes. We are not ready yet. We are still living in the state of nature, as Hobbes want to tell us. We are not yet ready to have a social contract. We are not yet ready to be governable. We are not yet ready to have policies that will see to it that we function well and we function bright and we function tall and we strive for the betterment of our life as we ordinarily should do as a people. It goes to say, we are not so educated after all. We are not so educated on many fronts. We don't have publishing houses. We don't have printing press. So that most of the books that come down to us, either from China being printed there for solely capitalistic ventures, or from the West, up until now, with little or nothing to say about our stories. The policies down there are very stringent. So that when a place like Okada Books decided to go to shut their website and shut their operations, I wept. Because it was a way out for a whole lot of Nigerians. Brittle Paper is trying to do the much it could do. Isele Magazine is doing what it can do down the other particular part. Open Country is doing a whole lot there. Afro Critic is trying its very best. Voice of the East is trying its best within the said possibilities it can ordinarily get to function. It begs the question, after more than decades from the date of the publication of a book like Things Fall Apart, things are still falling apart. The whole idea of the white man came and he put a knife on the things that held us wasn't just an expression, was a real thing. And now, till tomorrow, till next year, until next month, things continue to fall apart until we tell ourselves that it takes two to tango. It takes us to come together to get to flourish together. We are not the only people that have been here. That is why I'm very concerned as to how things are, because they can go worse. We have seen countries going worse than where Nigeria currently is, and nothing is saying that it cannot go lower than that. But also we have seen countries come out of the rubbles of their sufferings and their corruptions and their ways of self-infliction of pain on themselves and suffering. We can learn from them. One of the ways to start is the book that currently saw the authors win a Nobel Prize, How Nations Fail. Mr. Simon is a person I really admire a whole lot, and I come to hold his work so dear, and the body that ordinarily has been his ways of doing things, and a whole lot of other things down that particular line. We need to study and see how countries fail. We need to study and see how nations fail and how nations rise and how they are sustained. We need to know how they play their politics. We don't just elect or select people and allow them to go and stay in offices and then just buy cars they cannot produce. Cars they ordinarily cannot have an idea what the components that came together to even make such. People who just think about themselves, their stomach, their belly, their family, and the building of generational wealth for themselves and themselves alone. It goes down to education. We must educate ourselves. We must come to terms with the fact that we are a people badly and poorly educated. And we must strive to make sense of our life. We must strive to make sense of our life if a thing as healthcare is to be a thing we ordinarily want to achieve. But you tell me how a country is going to achieve healthcare if education is not a thing given attention to, so that people at least know the basic things they're ordinarily supposed to do, so that the different foods will be eaten over the years should be brought down to labs and be brought down to research centers, and we look at the pros and the cons, and then we ordinarily come to know what has been killing us over the years. Is it fufu? Is it the excess component of a particular element in it, or whatsoever? We test everything. We test every spirit. We test every water. We come to explore our aquatic system and get to see if we could find solutions to our own peculiar health crisis, and come to see how we can mitigate the ways things function, the ways we function as a people. But no, come on. Our politicians will say no. They don't have us in mind. They don't have us at heart. They don't. When you see them wear all this their babariga and you see them go for meeting, you see them sit down there and churn out papers, you see them sit down there and do the things they get to do. You as a person, you'll be thinking, these guys, they have us in mind. They don't have any of us in mind. They don't have us in mind. These guys don't have us in mind. It's a given. It's a thing we should know by now and know peace. They don't have us at heart. They don't even have themselves and their futures at heart. Because tell me, come on, for how long are women going to die during childbirth to the tone and the number they get to die? When was the last time you saw an ambulance in Nigeria? Not the thing that goes about carrying dead bodies. That was not ordinarily what's supposed to take a dead body. When was the last time you saw a proper ambulance in your life? If you think I am exaggerating, if you think I'm just churning out things out of the blue, if you think I'm just churning out things from nowhere, when was the last time you fucking saw an ambulance? When was the last time you died an emergency number and then it went through? When was the last time you were in distress and you called police immediately and they responded to you without probably having a corporal or a DPO or a sergeant number personally? We make things look too luxurious in Nigeria. Things like emergency numbers, things like numbers for distress call, things like basic amenities. So that without this, these men will not feel important. Without this, they will not feel the level of pomp and the level of swagger and the ginger they have around. Without this, they lose their power, and they cannot allow you take that away from them. They will always want you to be their puppet. They will always want you to be their dog. They will always want you to serve them, call them Oga, call them Madam, carry their bags, open their gates, wash their houses, campaign for them, kill for them, do their dirty deals for them. Come to Twitter, to X, come to Facebook, and come to different social media platforms and spew rubbish, spew nonsense, spew things below the benchmark of rational thinking and rationality, spew things I cannot even understand. They do that because that is what gives them joy. They like the reaction they get. They mock us. They mock our poverty. They mock our sense of thinking. They mock the ways we ordinarily function as a people. They stink the devil. They make it look as though it is normal to be poor. They make it look as though it is normal to suffer. They make it look as though it is normal to be insane. They make it look as if it is okay not to complain. They make it look as though it is normal to be in distress. They make it look as though it is fine for us to shout and shout and shout on top of our voice until we get traumatized and give up the prospect of shouting and give up the prospect of a possibility of change and give us the chance to fall into despair. But you and I cannot afford despair. You and I cannot afford despair on many fronts, because if you accept despair, what then will you be living for? If you accept despair, what will your life turn out to be? If you accept despair, nothing makes sense again. If you accept despair, they win. If you allow you enter into despair and then call it a quit, the loss is on you. And so in order for us not to give them that chance, we ordinarily have to call ourselves in families, in groups, in small units, and start to tell ourselves, my son, my daughter, we have seen to it that in as much as we continue to stay apart, in as much as we continue to stay far away from each other, in as much as we continue to be the type of people we are, in as much as we continue to be individualistic, we cannot really achieve a goal, a dream, a task. We cannot really come to be that communal people we used to be. We have to doff off the white man's ideology of individualism and get to forge for a communal spirit. It mustn't be Ubuntu. It can be a whole lot of other things than Ubuntu. But what else will it be if we don't tell ourselves that I am because you are, and you are because I am, and together we are? And that is what is important. How do we want to grow if we don't come together, sit down together, eat together, reason together, think together, bring out our problems together, and see to it that we function as a people, that we stand tall together? Which brings me to tribalism. We have done ourselves a serious disfavor as Nigerians. We have done ourselves a serious disfavor by the things we get to tell ourselves, by the lies we have sold over the years, by how we've told ourselves the German is a bad man, the Igbo man is our problem, the Hausa man is the problem of the country. How we have been able to tell ourselves these lies over and over, they are beginning to take the shape of truth. They have taken the shape of truth. Tribalism was one of the reasons we went into war. Beyond the claim the soldiers gave of corruption, nepotism, keeping quiet to things ordinarily where we ordinarily were supposed to talk. These things are interconnected. Everything is tied together, the one and the many. And in a world where we now have the many without the one in our time, it becomes all the more difficult. As such, there are no seemingly, even if for a very vague, from a very vague standpoint, there are no laid down rules as to how we play this game. There are no laid down rules as to how we function as a people. And so we continue to see ourselves on the levels of our tribes, or the tribes so-called, the one we now have, the states. Things we ordinarily don't need. The divisions we see emanating from our tribal sentiments speaks the devil. From catchment area to quota system to federal character, throwing meritocracy off board in the name of inclusion stings the devil. It continues to see to it that we dwindle and we continue to die and we continue to go down the way we go for a whole lot of reasons. For reasons not far-fetched. For reasons we don't want to admit. For reasons we don't even have backings for. Tell me, why will you judge somebody by their surnames? Why will you deny them marriage or love from the place they come from the family they get to associate with? Except these families are bad families. But how wouldn't you make them bad families by giving them a bad name and killing them? And so we see ourselves constantly pitching tents for corrupt politicians. They know these things. Our politicians know these things. They know how to use this card, then play the card a whole lot. They are friends. They might not be friends in the real sense. At least Aristotle talked about friendship from the point of utility, from an equal level of mentor-student kind of friendship, the older, the younger, utilitarian, and then the friend from a mutual respect and agreement. And most of the times you cannot really distinguish which is what from the other, because when you look at utilitarianism and you look at mutual respect, the line is so blurred. It's a thin line. It's a sad reality, and we are not ready yet. We have not made our mind. We have not come up with a plan yet to navigate our stuff. But I want to understand, Why is tribalism making the wave? Why is it a thing we find so dear? Why is it a thing we want to keep? Why is it a thing we want to embrace so much so? Don't we fall sick? Don't we die? Don't we use the restroom? Don't we urinate? Don't we have sexual tensions? Don't we have our nerve endings telling us things we ordinarily don't want to do? Don't we have addictions? Don't we have our flaws? Don't we have the necessary things that drive us to hunger that every other person has, every other person have and possess? Don't we have all of these things? So if we have all of these things, what is the difference? We shout racism, we shout colonialism, we shout we've been enslaved, we shout this, we shout that, we shout how the West is exploiting Africa, we shout how our leaders are doing this and that. But we help enthrone them, we help spread their poison, we help put them where they are, we help keep them where they are. And yet we shout the devil and we shout anathema on them. That's the them, the other. But like Emmanuel Levinas, the French philosopher, will get to tell us, whenever we encounter the other asks us, please don't kill me. The other asks, please don't kill me. How have we fared with our tribal sentiments? We travel abroad. We want their passport. We want their residency. We want to have freedom to do things on our own level. We want to be granted access to infrastructures. We want to be granted access to schools. We want to be granted access to higher places of higher learning. We want to be granted jobs in these places. We want to leave our countries, migrate to a different place, and we want to even become PMs. We want to fall into their politics. We want to become legislators. We want to do a whole lot of things. But in our home states, in our villages, we retreat, we retract, we form fist and tell ourselves, you are a different man, woman, child, boy, girl from myself. Your people are there. These are my people. And even if my people are there, they can be here than you who have been here all your life because you are not here. In fact, you are there. Forget the fact that you think you are here. You are not here. Does it ring a bell? Our levels of hypocrisy, our levels of behaving so childish and so irrationally, our ways of doing things and our ways of not doing things. Do we really understand the levels and the implications of the things we do and the things we say and the things we don't do? Do we ordinarily understand what it means to be us? With our despicable behaviors, with our tribalistic sentiments across different boards, things that leave us in the place we are. As such, we are constantly arguing as to it has not gotten to the Igbo man's turn to be president. A thing that is justifiable, we continue to argue it has not gotten to the Yoruba turn. A thing that they have given to them how many times, and where are we? Let the right man and the best man come forward, regardless of the tribe such a man comes from. You can build your sentiments for all I care. You can brew your angst and your anger and your sentiments for all I care. But let the right man come forward. We don't think about this when we want to fly an airplane. We don't ask ourselves, where is the man from? Is he a Wausa? Is he an atheist? Is he an agnostic? Is he a religious man? We don't ask ourselves, does he worship Ifa? All we care about is let the plane land safely. We enter a bus, we don't ask, is the man an Ijaw man? We don't ask, is the man from Ishekiri? We don't ask, is the man an Ogoja man? We don't ask, if the man is from Boki or the woman. When we are out for a surgery, we don't ask ourselves, oh, this doctor that is about to conduct this surgery on me, is the doctor from Bafun? Is the doctor from Yala? Is she from Ogoja? Is she from Abakaliki? Is he from Obanliku? Is he from Taraba? We don't ask all these questions. We assume and we believe that the person has the competence and the professionalism and the professional skills it takes to ordinarily get to operate on us and tell us what to do, and we will be fine. But then all of a sudden it comes to the issue of nationality. It comes to the issue of what affects everybody. Even the so-called rich man, it affects him one way or the other. Those who are ordinarily supposed to be his friends cannot be his friends because they're not on the same level. He has stolen money beyond the recognition of what I don't know. And so I begin to ask myself, how long do we want to continue like this? How long? How long are we going to continue like this? Before we tell ourselves that our shame is too much, before we tell ourselves that things are pretty much bad for us, how long are we going to function the way we function? It doesn't make sense. We need to begin to look at ourselves from the original perspective we ordinarily supposed to look at ourselves from. We need to love ourselves. We need to like ourselves. We need to come to terms with the fact that we are people at the crossroads of history, and it matters what we think, it matters what we do, it matters what we become as a people. We aren't so happy to even start with. We are not so happy. We're not even happy. Are we even happy? We are not happy. And we don't even know we are not happy. We don't have light. We don't have light in our souls, in our hearts. We don't even have the courage to confront ourselves and tell ourselves, oh man, I think we are heading towards the wrong direction. I think we are heading towards the wrong path. We don't even have the courage necessary to confront our own fears, to confront our own existence. We don't have what it takes. We don't have the balls. And so we continue to die the way we die. We continue to be poor in heart, in mind, and in our outlook. We continue to blame the white man and blame the white man and blame the white man. I'm not saying we shouldn't blame them. We should blame them for all we want to blame them. But we must also be responsible. We should also blame our brothers and sisters. For as long as our brothers and sisters continue to rule us the way they continue to rule us, people continue to die. Accidents continue to happen. Children continue to die before age 5. Their margeries are constantly there and the government does nothing. Are we a joke? Yes, we are a joke. The joke is on us Nigerians. The joke is on us Nigeria as a country. Nigeria could be anything, can be any country. If the people are not right, that country would crumble. Nigeria is not the problem. Nigerians are the problem. We are the problem. The land can be anywhere. The land can be anywhere. At the moment, it is where it is, and it has come to be called Nigeria. In 200 years from now, nobody knows what will happen. The UK left Europe, so to say. That was not a thing somebody would be thinking about like 40, 50 years ago. It has already happened. Egypt is clamoring to leave. The shame is on us. We claim to be the fucking most populous black nation in the world, and yet we barely can do anything. We don't farm, we don't do anything, we just want to eat, we just want to be given food. Who does that? Who does the farming? How will you eat? You want somebody else to do the thinking for you. Okay, allow the person to do the thinking for you. And let's see how that goes. Let's see how you fare. Let's see how you come to understand your own culture. You don't publish books. You don't even have policies that get to see to it that literacy becomes a thing in the fucking 21st century. You don't do any of these things, and you want manners to fall from heaven. You want to give everything to God. Come on, continue, ride on. I clap for you. Call on God to come and solve your problem. Continue doing this. Continue calling on Him. He's going to come. You've forgotten that St. Augustine said, God who created us without us cannot save us without us. However fallacious that statement might look, it still holds water. When you look at it from a literal standpoint, that the earth has been given to us to dominate, not in the angle of dominate, but to cultivate and make use of. If you plant a seed, it gets to come out. So what are we doing? We have land from Plateau down to Obudu, from Katabang to Kakwagom, from Oku to Butantong, from Okuni to Bekwara, from Eshagrube to Banzan, from Sadop to Buje, from Onitsha to Adamawa, from Owerri down to Enugu, from Unsuka down to Kogi. We have land. We have fertile soil. There's barely any part of Nigeria's landmass that cannot produce something. The hills of Obudu can be used for a whole lot of things, but we don't. Cattle are still being seen loitering around the Federal Capital Territory when we are not in India. The joke is on us, Nigerians. And until we stop the whole idea of being so irresponsible and asking God to do things we ordinarily can do for ourselves, the joke will continue to be on us. And so we will continue to see environmental degradation. We will continue to see poverty in our space. We will continue to see a lack in infrastructure. We will continue to see a death in political stability. We will continue to see a death in our political class. We will continue to look from APC to PDP to Labour Party to all the places you look, and you see the same crop of people running across these places, save for a very few. Except for a very few. What about human rights violation? Why wouldn't this be violated? If you are the one, wouldn't you violate the stuffs in Nigeria when the place is the way it is? When you are not Socrates, the joke is on us. The joke is on us. And until we come to terms with the fact that we must be so educated so that things like gender equality, not in the literal sense, would come to be achieved. Because I don't believe that genders can be equal. At least not in the sense we are being told the propagation is in and about at the moment. Men and women are not the same. It's not the same gender. We can cooperate with each other. The Chinese yin yang comes to mind. We can complement each other. Where one lacks, let the other complement. That is what we can do, and not this idea of enthroning a particular gender against the other or on top of the other, and then the whole cycle becomes what we've been fighting from. We must be educated. We must face our fears. We must have the courage enough to tell ourselves, you know what? Our ways of doing things have not been solving any problem. Can we try something else? Can we do something else? Can we function in a different way? What should we do? What shouldn't we do? How should we go? How shouldn't we go? These are conversations we are not even ready to have. These are conversations we don't even want to have. And so we continue to die. And we continue to shrink and shrink and shrink. So we continue to owe money, public debt, because we will continue to borrow money and lend money from places we don't ordinarily need to borrow and lend money. Every country gets to borrow money. That's not a problem. But when you lend money for just mere survival without a business plan in mind, without some mental acumen as it concerns how to get to replenish these funds and get to make good use of this money, it becomes a problem. It becomes also a thing of money laundering, because when you lend money for a particular stuff and you don't get to use it for that particular thing and you use it for a different stuff, you've laundered that money, if I'm not mistaken. And so, what do we see? We go down the way we go down, with little or no space for change, with little or no space for self-love, with little or no change for progress. Nothing is going to change. Not now. Not in the future. It comes down to one thing: leadership, governance, our policies. It comes down to this group of stuff. It comes down to the ways we get to think and the ways we get to reason and the ways we get to behave and the ways we have come to tell ourselves that we are humans, because we live below the benchmark of what ordinarily humans are supposed to be. And so someone like D.K. Chukwumereje will get to tell us clearly that a broken road does not understand Igbo. It will not maim the Fulani and let the rest of us go. The accident it will cause will take all lives. For when a vehicle somersaults, it will break all bones. For you can speak Nupe till morning comes. It will not build libraries in our public schools. And when a young woman lies dying in childbed, your fluency in Ijo will not save her life. For Christian or Muslim, it makes no difference when you are being driven around in an ambulance from hospital to hospital in search of oxygen. Northerner or Southerner, you would die suffocating. You would die of causes easily preventable, like no fuel for police to respond to distress call, no water, no jobs, no nurses, no light. Tell me what kills better than bad governance. Nothing kills as efficiently DK maintains as bad governance. Nothing kills as bad governance. Nothing kills as a politician in office who do not pay salaries, whose response to bad road is bigger SUVs, who set up committees and publish white papers presiding over affairs that never improve. Politicians in office with minds in London, perpetual latecomers to every meeting, irritated by anyone with a different opinion, who see the people as a throne to sit on. Politicians in office who personalize the state, who criminalize criticism and terrorize dissent. Nothing in society kills us efficiently as a politician in high office with low mentality. Nothing. And so if we are tired of it all, DK continues. Strike at its root. If you are tired of needing a letter from a senator to get a job, if you are tired of seeing your hustles frustrated by public policies, if you are tired of this shame fix the politics. If you are tired of the anger, the hunger in our streets, if you are tired of children who die before age 5, if you are tired of insecurity, fix the politics. For until they are there in office, men and women with a heart for selfless service, no tribe, no tongue, just commitment to build a functional nation that fills us all with pride. Until they are there in office, men and women with a heart for public service, no region, no religion, just commitment to nation. Until we elect them, we labor in vain. Tell me, where is the lie? You want to catapult yourself to the ranks of the developed countries, and you are not ready to do what is necessary, and you continue to pray your life and disturb God for things ordinarily He, if He's up there, should not even be bothered about in the first place. Where's your shame? Where is my shame? We seem to have lost shame. We seem to have become so dependent on loans and so dependent on borrowing money from countries that don't even have the capacity we have as a people. We are a people of might, strength, and power. We are fucking over 220 million. And yet we've become so lazy, depending so much on exports rather than we've come to depend so much on imports rather than exporting of stuff. We cannot even be self-sufficient. We don't even have the basic means of agriculture. We don't even have basic things that get to see to it that life continues to function and flourish well, just like our ancestors did. We don't know that globalization is a thing that is going to sweep over the entire world. And we are coming so late to the theater, we are coming late to the movie, and we want things to get better. We should continue dreaming. Maybe when we wake up from our dream, like Edgar Allan Poe will say in his poem, "A Dream in a Dream," we will continue dreaming in such dreams. But these things aren't funny. Come on, guys. We can do better. Learn from the West. Learn from the things they have done right. And apply them in your life with the indigenous knowledge we already have from our ancestors. And our lives will be well, our lives will be good. Nothing much. Sometimes talking too much becomes so cheap. Like they said, talk is cheap. Action is all we need now. We've talked too much. Let's go and let's try and see how we can make this country work. Let's try to see how we can contribute to the good of the world and to the betterment of our life. I am Biringbo bin Nemeka. I'm your brother. See you next time.